Right, so we're diving into something pretty fascinating today. Imagine a book,
Mhm.
okay, written 2,500 years ago, 25 centuries, and people are still using it to, like, crush it in business deals and all sorts of things.
I know it's
But,
kind of wild, right? You'd think some ancient military manual would be, well, ancient history.
hmm,
But this book, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, it's like a playbook, like straight up timeless advice on getting ahead.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, we're not talking about, like, actual battle tactics here, forming a phalanx or whatever.
Mhm.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah, it's all about strategy, like pure strategy.
The art of winning. And not just wars, any kind of competition, really.
Right. Business, negotiations, even like reaching some personal goal you've got. It's like Sun Tzu boiled down the essence of how to win at anything.
So that's what we're doing today, right? We've got all these sources, like explanations, chapter summaries, the core stuff Sun Tzu was saying, and then even how people are using it now.
And our goal is to pull out the most powerful stuff, the insights you can actually use, to understand these situations and make strategic moves in your own life.
Exactly. So you don't need a PhD in ancient Chinese military history to get it.
Exactly.
So Sun Tzu, he starts off right away with, like, the most important thing, planning.
Oh, absolutely. The first chapter, I think it's called Laying Plans, something like that. Sun Tzu makes it so clear, right? Victory, it doesn't happen on the battlefield. It happens way before.
In the planning stages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's decided in how much prep work you do, how well you understand everything going on. Like Sun Tzu actually breaks it down. He's got 5 key elements you got to figure out before you even think about making a move.
Okay, so break it down for us. What are these 5 things?
Okay, so there's moral law,
Mm.
which basically means making sure everyone's on board. Like in a company, you got to have your team aligned with your goals, everyone moving in the same direction.
Right, so like team morale, I
Mhm.
guess, and that everyone's bought into the company vision, that kind of thing.
It's exactly unified. Then he talks about weather and terrain, which obviously back then meant the actual weather and terrain. But think about it. Weather, that's like, is the market good for your business? Are conditions favorable right now? Terrain, well, that's your competitive landscape. Who else is out there? What resources they got? That sort of thing.
I see. So you got to know the playing field, and you got to know if it's the right time to play, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's leadership and discipline. Pretty self-explanatory, but crucial. You got to have competent people in charge, and everyone needs to be focused. Executing the plan, no room for, going off on your own thing.
Makes sense.
But the big takeaway here, the thing Sun Tzu keeps hammering on, is that being strategic is so much more powerful than brute force.
Like brains over brawn, basically.
100%. It's not about having the biggest army. It's about knowing when, where, and how to strike. Thinking 10 steps ahead.
Okay, so we got a plan. We got to be smart about it. What else? What's next on Sun Tzu's hit list?
Well, he was really big on, efficiency. He hated the idea of these long, drawn-out wars.
Yeah, makes sense. Wars are expensive.
Yeah, super costly. Resources, morale, the whole 9 yards. And Sun Tzu knew that. So he really pushed for quick, decisive victories, like get in, achieve your objective, and get out.
Right. No point dragging things out, wearing everyone down.
Exactly. It's the same in life, right? I mean, think about a negotiation that goes on forever, or
Yeah.
like some argument that just keeps going and going. You waste so much energy and time.
Totally. So how do we avoid those kinds of situations, where we're just stuck in this back and forth forever?
Well, Sun Tzu has some thoughts on that too. And this is where things get really interesting. This is like the core of his whole philosophy, the idea that you can actually win without fighting.
Wait, really? How do you do that?
Okay, so this is crucial, right? It's all about knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. Sun Tzu has this famous quote: "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." Right. It's all about knowledge and understanding. Like, if you know your strengths and weaknesses, if you know what the other side is capable of, what their goals are, that's where the magic happens.
So it's less about brute force and more about, like, outsmarting the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about it in business. The ultimate win isn't to destroy your competitor, it's to make them irrelevant, to be so far ahead of the game that they can't even touch you.
That's like next level strategy. So we've got planning, we've got efficiency, we've got knowing ourselves and our enemy. What else?
Well, now he gets into this really interesting thing about defense and offense. Like, it's not just about attacking all the time.
Where you can't just be on the offensive 24/7.
Exactly. And Sun Tzu knew that. In fact, he saw defense as a way to prepare for offense. He said, invincibility lies in defense, but the possibility of victory lies in attack.
So you're building a strong foundation, you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
You're also waiting for the right moment to strike.
Exactly. It's all about timing, picking your battles. And that leads us to another super important thing, adaptability.
Right, because things change. You can't just stick to the same plan forever, especially if it's not working.
Exactly. Sun Tzu really stresses that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. You got to be able to adapt to whatever's happening around you.
So it's like, have a plan, but be ready to throw it out the window if you need to.
Exactly. Like, look at how companies have to pivot all the time. The market changes, technology changes. You got to be flexible or you're going to get left behind.
Right. Adapt or die, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered a lot. Planning, efficiency, knowing yourself and your enemy, defense and offense, and being adaptable. What else?
Oh, there's more. Sun Tzu was also big on exploiting weaknesses. It might seem obvious, but he really emphasized going after your opponent's weak points.
Right, like why bang your head against a wall trying to take down their strongest point?
Exactly. It's about finding those vulnerabilities, whether it's a competitor's flaw, a weakness in a negotiation, or even something within your own organization that's not working.
It's like that old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah. Find that weak link and you can break the whole chain. Okay, and then there's one more thing we got to talk about, information.
Ooh, juicy. Tell me more.
Well, Sun Tzu, he had this whole chapter about spies. Obviously, we're not talking about like literal espionage here.
Right, but the principle still applies.
Absolutely. It's about gathering information, doing your research, understanding the market, knowing what your competitors are up to.
Yeah, knowledge is power. That's like business 101, right?
100%. And sometimes it's also about knowing when to keep your cards close to your chest, not revealing everything you know.
Right, because sometimes the less people know, the better.
Exactly. It's like a strategic advantage.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of Sun Tzu's key principles here. It's amazing how this ancient stuff is still so relevant today. Like, our sources talk about how it's used in all these different areas, right? Business, negotiations, sports, even personal development.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Like, in business, it's all about gaining that competitive edge, identifying market opportunities and coming up with a long-term strategy. In negotiations, it's about understanding how to use timing and leverage to get what you want.
Right. And in sports, it's like coaches are straight up using Sun Tzu's playbook, analyzing their opponents, figuring out their weaknesses, adjusting their game plan on the fly.
Absolutely. And even for personal growth, it's about making smart decisions, handling conflicts in a strategic way, and knowing your own strengths and limitations.
Right. It's like mastering yourself and your environment.
Exactly. Oh, and we can't forget about leadership. Sun Tzu had a lot to say about that, too. He believed that great leaders needed to be wise, sincere, humane, courageous, and strict.
That's a tall order.
Right. It's not easy being a great leader. You got to have the smarts to make good decisions, the integrity to build trust, the empathy to connect with people, and the guts to take risks. And you got to be able to hold people accountable, make sure things get done.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's this whole thing about deception, right? Sun Tzu's famous line, appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's all about playing mind games, creating a false impression to gain an advantage. Like, think about a negotiator who pretends they're not that interested in a deal,
Yep.
just to lower the price.
It's like strategic misdirection.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, but I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, from Sun Tzu's entire philosophy, is that strategy always wins. Thinking things through carefully, planning ahead, being adaptable, all that stuff is way more important than just brute force.
I agree. Sun Tzu was all about using your brain to outmaneuver your opponent, minimizing conflict, finding the most efficient path to victory. And, he has this great line, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. So true. So to all our listeners out there, here's something to think about. I want you to pick one situation in your life right now. Could be a challenge you're facing, a negotiation you're involved in, a goal you're trying to achieve, anything. And ask yourself this, how can I use Sun Tzu's ideas? How can I really understand myself, understand the situation, and come up with a smart strategy to win? Because winning doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it's about being strategic, thinking things through, and coming out on top without even having to break a sweat.
Well said.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.